Good morning, this is Luke with Austin's Appliance Service. I thought this morning we'd talk about oven tips and different things that you can do to help you better use your oven. One of the first things right off the bat, I've said this in the past, but one of the worst things you can do is buy an oven thermometer. The reason I say that is this. Usually, most people don't even have an oven thermometer until they start suspecting that their oven isn't at the right temp. And then once they buy the oven thermometer, they absolutely convince themselves there's a problem. And the reason that is most of the population doesn't realize that your oven is not holding a temp. What I mean by that is, so let's say you set your oven for 350. Your oven isn't actually holding 350. What it's doing is it's running up somewhere between 380 and 400 degrees typically, and it's dropping down, say, 320 degrees. If I'm going to check your oven to see if it's running proper temp, I'm not looking to see it hold 350. What I'm looking for is, let's say it goes to 380. 380 is 30 degrees over our set temp. So we set it for 350, it runs up to 380, or 30 degrees over. What I'd be looking for at that point then is I'd be looking for it to drop 30 degrees below 350, which would be 320, and that would make our median or average temperature of this constant heat cycle up and down 350. That is what 98% of your ovens out there do. There was one oven years ago, it was actually a GE oven, it was a cheapie. It had a modulating thermostat that actually, when it was a gas oven, and then what it would do is when it got to 350 or to your set point, it would bring the flame size down. That is a very unusual setup. Most of them, it's either full-blown heat or it's no heat. And what you're doing is we're turning the heat source on, we're running the temperature up, we're turning the heat source off, temperature comes back down. When we go to maintain heat, it goes back up. And you've seen this, if you've had an electric oven with that orange element. It's not always orange, is it? It's on and then it's off. And so you put an oven thermostat in there, that's what you're going to see. You're going to turn it on looking for 350, and you're like, this thing ain't 350. It's 310 degrees in there. It's 320. It's 400. It's all over, and that's immediately going to convince you do have a problem. And actually, what you're seeing is the oven cycling in temp. The other thing I would mention and tell you is that those oven thermometers are usually always behind the 8 ball, at least for a good 20 minutes. Because that's a spring coil style thermometer, so you've got the actual housing of that thermometer, and that spring coil is exactly what it sounds like. It's a coil of metal spring that expands and moves as it heats. The problem is you're having to heat the housing, and then you're heating the spring metal, and by the time you do all that, it takes a good 15-20 minutes to get everything, the air temp and the metal temp, to match. Another thing with ovens, or the reason I say this in relation to that, is if you want to know what your oven is doing, cookies. Bake some cookies, or something that's in there for 10-15 minutes. If my oven is set for 350, and I put in cookies, and I take the cookies out, and the cookies are done properly, or, whatever it is that the recipe calls for, if they come out right in the right amount of time, then your oven is working correctly. Because ovens are in there a short amount of time, the cookies or whatever it might be in there for 10-15 minutes, they come out correctly if the temperature's correct. You throw a roast in there for hours at a time, it just needs to be hot, and so you can't tell as much. But baked goods, cookies, things that are in there a short amount of time, if the temperature's wrong, they won't come out right. If the temperature's right, they're going to come out right. That's a much better way to actually tell what your oven is doing. Some other things about ovens, and as far as a lot of people like to put down foil to catch spills. Make sure that foil is not covering. You'll notice at the bottom of your oven you've got vents about 1 inch wide on each side. Make sure your foil is not covering those vents. You're going to mess up your heat convection or your heat layering if you do. What else? As far as, your freestanding stove with an oven, as far as on the cooktop too, in the winter months, here pretty soon, the weather will get cold again. People will start running these humidifiers. Humidifiers many times will affect your flame quality on the top. You'll notice that the flames actually have almost like a purplish or a heavy orange tip. And what that's doing is it's burning the impurities off that humidifier is carrying in the air. It can change. It will also affect your heat output. You'll find that it takes longer to boil water, things like that. So that's something just to mention. What else? Oven door glass. A lot of people call me to clean the oven door glass. You can't really prevent your oven door from getting dirty. It's a vented door. The reason being is these self-clean ovens get so hot that if it was a solid door, eventually the inner temperature would match the outer temperature. In other words, the outer surface temperature would burn you the minute you touch the door. So the door's vented, but it allows, the biggest drawback is it allows for grease, different things to get into the door. Other than that, probably the only other thing I would mention is if you are noticing that it takes a long time to boil water on your cooktop, I would say 50 to 75% of the LP conversions I come across that someone else did, a lot, like if a gas company did it or the store installer did it, I don't know how many times they missed the regulator cap. There is a cap on the regulator that you need to flip to set it for propane. And they miss that one so much. And see, the thing is, it's easy to miss, and it's also, it masks itself well. So in other words, you'll still have a blue flame on top, but and it'll look the right size. And so it's really easy to miss. Well, you'll have, if you don't flip the cap, you'll have the wrong gas pressure. It will affect your BTU output. So if you have a cooktop and you're going, this thing just has never boiled water very well. This thing has just never really seemed to put the heat out well. And then a lot of times people just kind of get used to it. Or even the oven. My oven seems like it takes forever to actually preheat. If that regulator cap did not get flipped, and again, I see this thing missed probably on 50 to 75% of the stoves that I run into. Let's say 50%, because some of them are right. You won't have the heat output. Your preheats will take longer. You won't boil water very well. And so that gets missed probably the second most thing that is missed on LP conversions. The number one thing is low flame setting. If you have burners that you cannot simmer on, you take it down to low and the thing just still burns everything, very, very likely they did not set the low flame. There's a set screw inside your burner valve that most people miss. It's the low flame setting, and if that doesn't get set right, you can't simmer nothing. You'll burn everything. So with that, I think everything off the top of my head that I can think of that with ovens, pertaining to ovens. If you have questions are going to be a big help for me with these videos to know what you guys are looking for. And if I miss stuff, again, I know I'm just rambling. I'm getting on here, I'm making videos, and I'm just taking off. I'm just rambling. I'm just going with what comes to my mind. I will miss stuff. I will say stuff wrong. I know me. When I get rambling, I know I'm going to say things sometimes that I may misspeak. So please ask questions. Please, that helps me. Helps me to follow up with stuff. Helps me to know what more I need to address. And also remember, I am putting these things on YouTube. I am going to do more with YouTube. It would be a big help if you guys would subscribe. I cannot do anything that originates from YouTube and put over to Facebook, really. As far as anything live, I can't do anything with that until I get my subscribers up to 50. Right now it's at like 37. I don't expect to become YouTube famous or anything, but it would be helpful that I can start originating videos there and moving and sharing them over to Facebook. Just some things I want to experiment with and think that might help to for getting them out before in front of people, because one video does really well, the next video it's like it never moved. So anyways, so that would be a big help. But again, questions, please ask them. because it helps me to know what to address next. But anyways, I'm gonna get off here and get to work. I'm already behind today playing secretary and trying to get on the road. So with that, you guys have a good day.